very hard, and hardcore mode. That should hopefully answer part of your inevitable question of how playing the game as myself could possibly be challenging whatsoever. Granted, New Vegas is not a difficult game by any stretch of the imagination, regardless of the difficulty, but I digress. Anyway, why am I doing this and what does it entail? First off, this is the 100th Fallout run on the channel, and just like how the Metal Gear Saga video is celebrating 100 total runs, this is to mark the special occasion of just how many times I have run through Fallouts 3, 4 and New Vegas. The reason I chose this run in particular is simple. Between this and the Murder run, which I did a few weeks ago, these were the most requested runs I have gotten over the years, so it seemed like a good idea. That's also why I'm doing this in New Vegas and not my personal favourite Fallout 3. Doing the run in New Vegas was simply what was suggested more. Alright, so now for the what. Simple. It's just, how do I play the game casually? After all, you've seen me run through this multiple times under all kinds of bizarre stipulations, so I guess it would be fun to see how I would tackle things normally if I was playing solely for myself. This means you all get to critique me on my choices and who I side with. More than usual anyway. For a different interpretation of this run, a few months ago, the Brickmaker did a run in New Vegas as me that was about trying to incorporate a bunch of different aspects from many of the different runs into a single playthrough. There will be a link to his video in the description. I highly recommend you give it a look. One final note, this is not going to be a 100% playthrough, simply because when I do play New Vegas casually, I never go for 100%. I only ever did that once, and that was to get all of the achievements, or at least most of them. Now, with all that out of the way, let's begin. Naturally, the character's name is Nerbit, and he looks like the normal long-haired bearded blonde dude I always create. Fun fact, this look that I always go with is due to me spending upwards of an hour on the character creation of Dragon Age Inquisition back at its release. Spending so long on the character creator left me so little time to actually play the game on the night of release, so I ended up just creating old Blondie here as a way for me to quickly make a character anytime a new game comes out so that I can jump in and actually play the thing and not spend 20 minutes sculpting his nostrils. A small side note, there is a Dragon Age Origins video in the works that should be coming out at some stage hopefully, and it may end up being substantially longer than the Metal Gear video, so mentally prepare yourself for that one. Anyway, back on track, special stats. Shocking none of you, I am going melee focused, so high strength and endurance for damage and survivability, then the rest of my points into intelligence, cause the faster my skills increase, the happier I am. For my tag skills, I go with medicine, repair, and melee weapons. Again, damage and survivability are my main focus. I used to tag speech all the time, but after a while I realised that there aren't that many high speech checks early on, so I can work on increasing it later. I mainly use it for convenience to speed along certain side quests. Don't worry, I won't be using it to skip past any major things like the final boss. Finally, for my traits, it's skilled and heavy-handed. Skilled is just the best trait by far in the long run, so no surprises there. Heavy-handed, on the other hand, I do see the argument against, as a lot of melee builds can really excel with higher crit chance and damage. Thing is, I am planning to go get a super sledge within the first 20 minutes, so my build is more about the raw, consistent damage output, rather than quick slashes with a fast weapon for potentially big crit damage. Once I thank Doc Mitchell, because you are a monster if you are mean to Doc Mitchell, I get to dropping the pre-order weapons and armor. I know I technically don't have to today, but I never really use them anyway, so no point having them weigh us down. Sure, I could sell them to chat for a quick buck, but it's so easy to make money in New Vegas that, again, it's not necessary. I legally robbed Doc's house for some minor healing supplies and an SMG. Those I do sell to chat and use it to purchase some leather armor as well as a shovel. Doesn't take a genius to figure out what this melee build is after if I'm buying a shovel right off the bat. Takes me a moment to find Chance's grave, mind you. You'd think I'd have this entire map etched into my brain by now, but I think it would shock all of you just how much of this game I tend to forget from run to run. On my way, I do make use of the rebuild character prompt to do the trick with the skill trait, where you can get double the skill increases by simply selecting it again. A bit cheesy, yeah, but it is what it is. After I get the knife, I'm able to put it to use right away on the two nearby coyotes. Takes about 3 slashes to put each of them down. So yeah, they are a bit stronger on the highest difficulty, but not by that much, all things considered. I stop off in the nearby abandoned shack to grab anything I deem valuable, as well as a little bit of food and water, because again, I am on hardcore mode after all. I get asked a lot why I don't play on hardcore for runs. Truthfully, it's because it wouldn't affect much in the end. Despite the setting, it's not hard to find a lot of food and water. All I would need to do is occasionally fast travel back to somewhere like the Lucky 38 to sleep, which, to be fair, I probably wouldn't include in the video, so you'd probably never really notice. Making my way for Sloan, I come across a slightly more menacing foe, that being a rad scorpion. Or at least he would have been, if he did not get stuck behind this small tree. Kinda made it all too easy for me to slice and dice. At Sloan, I offer my services to Snuffles and the nearby generator so that I can get both of them back in working condition. It's some easy XP, plus a little NCR rep wouldn't hurt. Typically, for the path I would go, I want to be idolized by them. Not really for me specifically, mind you. You'll understand later. It's not like I'm some sort of saint though, I do still swipe the 200 plus caps in the 2 trunks they keep upstairs. On with my plan to get my weapon of choice, it's off to Hidden Valley. The bark scorpions, as per usual, are squishy as all hell, and by killing them, I can reach level 2. Everything into melee weapons and then confirmed bachelor. My main goal typically is to max the damage output from my main weapon as fast as physically possible. Once I know I can reliably kill just about anything with the right preparations, then that's when I start focusing on other skills like science and repair, along with their relevant perks. I double check around here that the difficulty settings are correct, and they are. It only ever happened once, but I remember one time when playing, my difficulty settings reset themselves somehow, and now, to this day, I always check them every hour or so, just to make sure that nothing is different. I'm checking this now specifically because I'm about to go into my first real fight. That is, of course, against Mo and the Centaurs. Mo and the Centaurs. It sounds like a great name for a band. Anyway, when fighting them, I need to be careful as I don't have much in the way of armor just yet. Just some nearly broken leather from Chet, and considering the difficulty increase, they could make short work of me if they wanted. At the very least, the fight is on my terms at close range. Centaurs do have that ranged spit move, yeah, but it's not very fast and incredibly easy to dodge. Plus, at least in my experience, they don't seem to use it all that much regardless. The play this time was to use my speed to outmaneuver them during the fight. Basically, rush in for a quick slash or two before pulling back out of tentacle bitch slapping range. The startup and recovery of their melee attacks are so long that unless I get greedy, which has been known to happen to be fair, I should never really be in all that much danger if I play my cards right. Before long, despite being the one with the least legs, I am the only one left standing, so I proceed into the crater to strip the paladins of all of their belongings. The holotape I'll need to get into the base, whereas I can fix up their weapons and power armor for a frankly absurd amount of caps if sold to the right merchant. With the tape in hand, it's back to Hidden Valley to be briefly kidnapped before being sent to get rid of the nearby NCR Ranger. Even with Chance's knife, I don't fancy my chances against Dobson, so I opt to work to my strengths. In this case, quite literally, as I crush the radio in my bare hands. I then witness a bark scorpion suffer a fate worse than death, before making my way back to the Elder, who is pleased with my efforts, even if they were a tad brutish, and then requests we help him find the rest of the missing patrols. By speaking with him here, this causes Harden to teleport over to the exit of the lower levels, so we can ambush you for your help once you leave. What that means for us is that he is not in his room, therefore we can very casually walk in and steal his super sledge with absolutely zero resistance or repercussions. This will be our main weapon for quite a while, or at least until I can get my hands on my actual favourite weapon in New Vegas, oh baby, the unique super sledge found up in the Night Stalker cave up at Jacobstown. I'm not an idiot though, I know I am nowhere near prepared enough to even attempt to tackle that as of this moment, so we will get around to that at some point down the road. If I was on normal difficulty or lower, I'd probably just rush straight there, as Lily could easily solo her way through the cave, but on very hard, I know for a fact that the sheer quantity of Night Stalkers would tear both of us to shreds. So I'll need to play this smart and prepare first. First step to doing that would be fixing up this super sledge. Yeah, it's great, don't get me wrong, but Harden didn't exactly keep the thing in pristine condition. My options are pay an exorbitant amount of money at the Mojave Outpost, repair kits, or fix it up with another super sledge. Well, I don't have the caps for the first option, and honestly, I feel I'd be wasting repair kits using them now. I'd rather wait till my repair skill was higher to get the most use out of them. So all that leaves is getting a backup for repairs. Oddly enough, I know just where to get one, and bonus points, it's nearby. All I need to do is fight and kill Tabitha for it. Not the easiest fight in the world, as regardless of whether I block her attacks or not, I am going to take an insane amount of damage. My first attempt goes rather poorly, in that I die. Takes her no more than 3 hits to do it too. In my defense, because I literally have none, one of those was a power attack, so it's not all that bad. Next try, and it's night and day. I decide to fight her just like I did with the centaurs. Quick hits and then backing off when it looks like she's going to hit me with a home run to the head. Playing it safe this way led to me not only coming out on top, but I managed to do so without taking a single point of damage, as she never managed to hit me. Her sledge was in slightly better shape than my own, so by smashing them both together, I can get one with a condition that is just below the damage threshold. Killing Tabitha is the fastest way to complete the crazy quest as well, so that gets me enough XP to reach level 4. Again, all into melee, and then the perk this time around is Educated. Makes the most sense to grab this one as soon as you can, obviously. Now that I am overcompensating and then some, I thought now would be a fun time to return to Goodsprings and help the town deal with the powder gangers. Despite being able to handle them easily on my own, which I did with little to no effort by the way, I still went around and got the assistance of everybody in town. Well, except for Pete, naturally. Victor can't actually enter this building, right? Like, he is way too big. So what does he do, just stare at it longingly? Anywho, not much else to do around here, so it's off to Primm. Feel like making Primm Slim the town sheriff is just mandatory for me. Okay, so on the way, naturally, I ran into some powder gangers who were then met with a grisly fate at the hands of my giant angry slab of metal. Well, when I was looting the spoils of my victory, I decided to rest in the nearby bed, as again, hardcore mode. Well, once I rested, I noticed that Trudy, of all people, had suddenly spawned in, and was sleeping in the same bed. Speaking with her, and there was nothing new, but then once the conversation was over, she began slowly making her way back to Goodsprings. Not game breaking by any means, but this game, man, it's always got some weird glitch or bug in store just waiting to confuse me. Other than that, there's no more surprises on the way to Primm. I am way more powerful than the game expects me to be by this point, so it shouldn't surprise you to learn that the escaped convicts all got mostly one-shot by me. I initially thought that I'd be lacking in the science department, but it turns out getting the 10 points from the skilled trait exploit along with my 9 points in intelligence gave me just enough to reprogram the goat into being the best protector Primm would ever see. This isn't even really a joke either. Have you seen his health stat by the end of the game? Fun fact, this makes him the most durable character in the entirety of New Vegas. It's just a shame the Protectrons hit about as hard as a wet noodle. Continuing up the road, and naturally, the jackals get what's coming to them. Killing them isn't just for XP or the sake of bloodlust for once, but rather I can get this one set of metal armor. It's not in a great state at the moment, but I'm hoping it won't take too long to find another set to fix it with. After all, it's worn by a lot of the raider types in this game. And besides, if that doesn't work, let's not pretend like the Mojave Outpost isn't a suitable alternative for repairs. While the jackals may not have been murdered for XP, the nearby rad scorpions most certainly were. After saving Beagle and helping out Primm, I've managed to max out my melee weapons, so from here it's all into repair, science, as well as a little into speech as mentioned prior, as well as a few that will need to be tossed towards unarmed as it needs to be high to unlock some perks that'll benefit my melee weapons. Seeing how I'm now at the outpost, we know where this is going, so I'll save some time and just say I eviscerated the ants, bashed in the heads of some of their nearby cousins, as well as Malcolm, and then followed that up by dealing with even more jackals. Again, as expected, some of them are rocking metal armor, so hooray for me! The speed of my leather armor is helpful for closing the gap between me and ranged targets, but that won't mean a whole lot if I'm turned into a block of Swiss cheese on the approach. Honestly, what I really want is power armor, but I don't feel like trekking all the way over to Nellis to grab one of the holotapes just now, so I'll save that for when we actually go to help the boomers. Plus, I am playing this for fun today. I don't need to be wildly optimizing my build as fast as possible. If I wanted to do that, I would have just made a beeline straight for Lonesome Road and bought some of the weapons and armor from the very first kiosk that you find there. Right, DLCs. So, potentially controversial opinion incoming. I don't really enjoy any of New Vegas's DLCs. Now, don't get me wrong, they are fun on your first playthrough, mostly, but if I am playing the game casually, the only thing I am benefiting from them is the increased level cap. Again, the odd time I might do Lonesome Road, but it's mainly just for a few items if I think they'll help my build. That's not an issue today, so I'd rather not. If it's any consolation to any of you, at least know that one of the next runs that I've been working on has me doing both Old World Blues and Lonesome Road. So I am still more than willing to play through them if the run calls for it. This is just not one of those runs, that's all. Now for something we can all get down with, I arrived in Nipton and then proceeded to just decimate the Legion, utterly humiliating them by not only dispatching them in record time without breaking a sweat, but also overpowering them in melee combat, which is meant to be their entire forte. Vulpes especially was just tossed aside like the absolute trash that he was.
Better luck next time, Fox Boy.
I returned to the Mojave outpost to deliver the good news to Jackson and the not so good news to Ghost. Also, if you see me running around naked from time to time, that's because I like to hotkey my heavy armor so I can quickly unequip it outside of battle to run faster. With my business here concluded, I kept pushing on through Nipton towards Novak. I take the path up through the cliffs where the bighorners are as opposed to walking down the road. Going that way will have me ambushed on all sides by raiders with guns, and I don't fancy my chances. Plus, there are mines everywhere along that path, and I like my legs where they are, thank you. That said, it's not like the bighorners were any more pleasant. Getting stuck in the centre of a mosh pit created by the beasts was not something I had on my to-do list today. I just about managed to scrape by once they let me back on my feet, and for doing so, I get another level to celebrate. Like I said, it's all into repair and preparation for the low durability of that golden sledge that I love so much. Because his spirit engulfs me like a mild form of symbiotic possession, I channel my inner Abe as I rush down to the nearby Legion camp and slaughter all of them so that the powder gangers may live. This combined with what happened in Nipton, it should be painfully obvious we are not siding with the Legion today. I couldn't tell you why, but ever since I found out from my brother in his first playthrough many years ago that you could just wipe their leader off the face of the earth, I've always made it a point of 90% of my casual playthroughs to just completely stick it to the Legion however I can. Also, yes, we will be purifying the Cove today, but first we are gonna need a little help, and I know just the man for the job. Boone is integral to my casual New Vegas experience. I don't think I have ever not had him along for the ride. Although this is hardcore mode, remember, so he can die. And to make it slightly more interesting, I will not be loading back if he bites it. So Boone is running his own challenge today of beating New Vegas with permadeath. With Boone by my side, I return to Hidden Valley and begin making my way for the shortcut. With Tabitha gone, I don't need to worry about getting jumped by any of the invisible nightkin now, so that's good. I make sure to disarm all the bear traps as well. I don't need Boone losing a few inches off of his height. I would have been concerned by the boulder, but I was able to just walk right through it, so I'm sure he will be fine. Or, at least, he will be, once he figures out how his legs work. Don't worry, buddy, I believe in you. Once Boone can find his way through, we make a quick stop at Repcon for the second haul tip, along with some supplies that will sell for a good price later. On our way out, and I plan on heading north to Camp McCarran. Figured it's a good idea to start building that NCR rep now that I've got Boone in tow. Our journey is almost immediately interrupted, however, when we are jumped by a band of Legion assassins. Turns out they don't take too kindly to you smiting one of their higher ranking members along with stealing his clothes. I won't lie, given their increased damage output due to the higher difficulty, I fully expected for Boone to die here. Luckily, they saw me as the primary threat, hard not to I suppose when I'm running straight for them with the intent to liquefy their bones. Boone meanwhile was providing great fire support from a safe distance. This is because I had the foresight to change up his tactics beforehand and make him stay back. Makes the most sense after all, he is a sniper. During the scuffle, one managed to slip past and began gunning it for Boone, but as it didn't take long for me to smash through his friends, I was able to jump to Boone's aid. Not that he would have needed it, turns out the Legion assassin couldn't hit for shit, all the while Boone was returning fire. Needless to say, the fight went very much in our favour, and before long, we were free to carry on with our journey. That being said, I decided we were going to make quite the detour. Still heading north, just going far past McCarran. Figured now is as good a time as any to go and try and get Oh Baby from Jacobstown. I would have waited until way later in the run when I had better armour, but if the Legion assassins are already a thing, then I'd rather be as prepared as possible for our next run-in with them. Sure, we were able to deal with them this time easily, but they will come back stronger, so we must be ready. Boone is fine though. He snagged one of the 44 revolvers from them and he began putting it to good use sporadically from here on out. Now, it's not to say we ignored everything on our way north. Far from it, in fact. We cleansed many an area from raider scum and villainy, such as them random fiends near Camp McCarran, the scorpions at the Monte Carlo Suites, and even Cook himself. We may not have the contracts yet, but that doesn't stop me from swiping his head and then storing it in my back pocket like the lunatic that I am. Oh, and I also snagged the Super Slam perk around this point as well. Just figured you'd all like to know, in case you were wondering why most people I come into contact with from this point on start swan diving to the ground once I begin cracking skulls. It's also damn near essential for tougher enemies this early on. As a matter of fact, I was hoping it would have took effect on the father-son Cazador duo that attacked us, but alas, that was seemingly not going to be the case. I tried to use VATS with the Mauler special attack as has a guaranteed knockdown effect, but the Cazador was just out of range. As I cancelled out of VATS, it then quickly closed the gap and poisoned me. I was smart enough to get some anti-venom by this point. Boone, on the other hand, was not so fortunate. While we both dealt with the flying demons, Boone was left poisoned. I tried putting some anti-venom in his inventory, but I guess he just refuses to use it. I know you think you're on borrowed time, my guy, but at least have some sense of self-preservation. At the very least, I can just pump him full of stin packs to offset the poison. I like to think I can just insert the needle into the same hole the Cazador made for us for ease of use. Somehow, they aren't even the most dangerous bugs we encounter along the way. That would be New Vegas doing its thing as per usual. Also, these mantises that managed to cripple one of my legs through my block. So, am I the only one who forgets just how much pain the bigger mantises can inflict when compared to their baby brethren? Like, that's quite the improvement. Suppose size matters after all. At the very least, my leg is snapped in two just outside of Jacobstown, so I can crawl on in and get it fixed. Is what I would be saying, but alas, Dr. Henry is in fact not that kind of doctor. So it's a roundabout fast travel trip to Goodsprings before I can proceed with getting my main weapon. I then agree to help Henry with his research and also to bring Lily along. Boone is great and all, but it's a rather enclosed environment with strong mutated creatures. Not exactly his strong suit. Apparently, it's not mine either, as it doesn't take long at all for me to become the Night Stalker's new favourite chew toy. At the very least, Lily is more than pulling her weight. Honestly, if anything, the best thing she can do right now for me is play tank. I may not be able to survive long against the whole pack, but my own damage output is respectable enough that I can quickly whittle down their numbers while she is distracting them. The final room that houses both our new main squeeze and the Nightkin we need to inspect for the quest is, surprisingly, not well guarded by the rest of the Night Stalkers. I think there was legit only 2 of them, and one's paws were half phased into the ground, so really it was like 1.5. With them out of the picture, I can finish this part of the quest and claim my prize. Substantially earlier than I initially thought for the run as well, so that's nice. Back at Jacobstown, and one of the Nightkin isn't too keen on waiting around for the cure, and due to me not power leveling my speech skill beforehand, a fight ensues. All 3 of the attacking Nightkin are unarmed, therefore this fight is about as one-sided as it can possibly get. You'd think, given their size, that their bare hands would pack a punch, but you would be mistaken. It takes me a moment to locate Dr. Henry after he bolted at the first sign of danger, but once I do, I can finish the quest and get a nice little jolt of XP for my troubles. At level 9, I raise my repair to 90, so I can eventually have access to the jury rigging perk, which again is damn near essential with how surprisingly brittle this golden hammer is. With the rest of my points, I begin focusing on my unarmed skill. I think it only needs to be at like 70 for the perks I want for this build, so not too many wasted points overall. After this, it's all into science and speech, with a little bit of medicine for good measure. Forgot to mention that on hardcore mode, stimpaks don't heal you right away, but rather they recover your health over time, so having a higher medicine skill to make them heal ever so slightly more is honestly quite handy to have in this mode. Alright, most importantly, now that my business in Jacobstown is concluded, it's back to Novak to get our best Boone back. I was a little early when visiting the dinosaur, so bumped into Manny instead. We chat briefly, he then tells me where the cans who stole the chip are, and I agree to sort out the ghoul problem at the old Repcon base launch site. We of course go and grab Boone from his crappy flat before that. The normal ferals are squishy enough that I can knock them down without much resistance, assuming Boone doesn't pop them like a balloon before I close the gap. Same inside really, only now I am pulverizing most of them while Boone is off doing his own thing. Meeting up with Mr. Brightside, and I agree to help him with his Nightkin problem. After all, I just did something similar in Jacobstown, so what's a few more? Turns out this group is a lot easier to talk with, despite their leader being a lot more unstable and taking orders from an in-game physics object. Honestly, all he wants is for me to grab him the shipment of stealth boys that should be in the room next door. Problem is, there's an overly aggressive ghoul there who has been sniping anybody who peeks their head through. Him and Boone would make very fast friends. Well, worry not, for while I may have stepped on a few more explosive traps than I would have liked, I was able to get rid of the ghoul and, by using a nearby terminal, could deduce that the stealth boys never made it to the facility. Bringing this info back to the Nightkin leader has him agreeing to leave with his men peacefully. Returning to Jason, and I once again agree to sort out his problems for him, because like most cult leaders, he never actually gets his own hands dirty. The items he requires for the final preparations are easy enough to find. Simply steal 5 of the rockets from Cliff Briscoe and Novak, followed by paying far more caps than I am comfortable with to old lady Gibson to get the thrust control module. I can take these back to the ghoul larper, who will then fix up the rockets, allowing us to stand in the observation platform while the heavily copyrighted music triumphantly signals the end of the quest. I also took one of the leftover space helmets while I was here. It may look goofy, but the protection it provides is nothing to scoff at. And it couldn't have come at a better time too, as while me and Boone are making our way for Boulder City, we are once more stopped by a small bunch of assassins. They put up about as much resistance as the first group. Sure, they end up inflicting more damage overall on me, but it seems someone may have buttered up their weapons before the fight, as almost all of them slipped away from them during the encounter. At the very least, Boone snagged more 44 ammo from their bodies in the aftermath, so with that, along with his beret, he can continue his low-budget Revolver Ocelot cosplay. The El Dorado Dry Lake is nearby, so you know what that means: more ant-based XP farming. Went into this one ever so slightly better prepared than usual, by which I simply mean I guzzled down one of the atomic cocktails I received earlier from helping Jackson with his own ant situation, ironically. It just gives a plus 41 to fire resistance, so I'm not burnt to a crisp immediately. While in the area, I also marked the substation on the map. I'll need to come back later after all, so may as well. With no more distractions, surprises, or surprising distractions, I can make my way into Boulder City, where I very quickly solve everybody's issues by throwing money at the NCR's feet. Before following the obvious path to Vegas, I make a quick detour to Hoover Dam, in one part to market, and another to get the snow globe inside the offices. For what it's worth, I've grabbed every one of these I've come across at this point. Outside of buying healing supplies, I'm not really sure what I'll need all the money for just yet, but it helps to be prepared. Right, so I figured now I should finally make my way to help out Camp McCarran like I wanted to earlier, but just before that I decided to finish what I'd started with Cook and began hunting down the remaining Fiend leaders. Violet and Nephi don't put up much of a fight, and to be fair, neither did Motor Runner. Really, the only mild struggle was the sheer amount of them in Vault 3. All that focused fire caused me to burn through more stim packs than I would have liked. That said, the only time I died down here was due to my own stupidity when I drowned in one of the submerged sections of the vault. I was just looking for supplies and took no notice of the water rapidly filling my lungs. Oh, also mildly important, I grabbed all of the pull cues that I could find. They're some of the lightest two-handed melee weapons you can carry, there is a lot of them down here, and they can be used to fix up Oh Baby once I get the jury rigging perk, so it'll help offset potential repair costs for quite a time. Anywho, with the Fiends demolished, I take their soggy heads to the Major for my money and rep, and then do the exact same thing with Motor Runner's helmet by presenting it to the Colonel. With that grisly business out of the way, I begin wandering around the base and helping out where possible. I start by interrogating the Legion prisoner. I'm able to do this without even lifting a finger, due to me having a high enough intelligence stat to know Latin. Vita tua mitit ut Caesar. We move from one Legion soldier to another, as I am tasked with finding out who on the base is a double agent for Caesar. Obviously, we know it's Captain Curtis, I have played this game before, so it's just a matter of stealing some info, speaking with Carrie, and then waiting for the right time to enter the control tower to catch him in the act. Oh, howdy Victor, how are you doing? It takes a bit of waiting, but we eventually catch him red-handed. Once we do, it's important we do not confront him right away, but rather book it over to the monorail so we will have enough time to disarm the bomb that he's planted. Doing things this way is the best possible outcome, as we can then just report our findings to the Colonel after the fact and have Curtis arrested. I do a couple of other odd jobs around the camp, like fixing the food processor for the chef, but really not a lot worth going over. After all this, I'm level 13, pushing 14, have a good amount of money behind me, and I'm in the area, so I figured it's high time I got on with some of the main quest. Although not before making a quick pit stop at the Gunrunners to purchase some reinforced metal armor. Probably not worth the investment, as I'm not going to be wearing this for long before I replace it with the far superior power armor, but well. I like the design of the reinforced metal, and sometimes you just gotta treat yourself to a nice new outfit. I mean, it's not like I'm going to need the added protection for Freeside of all places. Most of the quests here have zero combat, bar the occasional thug trying to hit you with a stick. That said, I do go and mindlessly murder Oris right away, and literally nobody seems to care.
Ugh.
Sure, I could have hired him like the king once, but killing him does not impact the rest of the GI Blues quest, so why bother? Speaking of, yes, I do the peaceful rite for the quest that has the Kings and the NCR make nice. All it requires is about 10 minutes of walking back and forth and back again, so why wouldn't you? Typically, I do this for the absurd amount of XP this quest dumps on your lap, which is one of the reasons, true. It even gave me enough to get the jury rigging perk. But I also wanted to speak to the King about getting Rex as a companion, and he kinda just distracted me with his work. Fortunately, I've already completed Dr. Henry's mission up in Jacobstown, so all that leaves is finding a suitable brain replacement for Rex. I already had Violetta's, true, but all it would do is increase his speed. While helpful, I've found before in the past it tends to end with him rushing headfirst into danger and getting himself knocked out, or in this case, killed entirely, before I can catch up to him. So it was back to Novak to see old lady Gibson, where for the low price of 700 caps, she will euthanize one of her dogs for me so that I may make use of his brain to give Rex a rather substantial damage upgrade. Well, I'm more prepped and ready than I really need to be, so now is a great time to get down to business on the strip. I have more than enough caps to pass the credit check by now, but just to flex my knowledge, I use my max science skill to simply make the robot stand down. I am told to go to the Lucky 38 first, but I'm sure it'll surprise none of you that I make a brief stop off at Gomorrah to rectify the sins of my past playthrough. As per usual, I do of course get my hands dirty with the purification of the casino by making sure nobody in a pinstripe suit is left to tell the tale of the massacre in question. But as the omertas are worth less than the dirt on my shoe, I am more than happy to let Boone and Rex take part in the majority of the cleansing. Besides, me swinging wildly while Rex is darting between them nearly led to me killing our furry friend on accident. While they were finishing off the last of the common rabble, I made my way up to the bosses and dealt with them personally. Also, for anybody curious, Boone procured another new weapon for his arsenal, this time a 10mm submachine gun, and he was killing with it, both figuratively and literally. With that over with, I'm off to see Mr. House. I've probably mentioned it before, but he is my preferred faction to side with for the main story. I just like the man and find him interesting to talk to. Plus, I kinda like the idea of just being his enforcer type. That said, I will still be trying to remain in the NCR's good graces. House benefits from their support for the time, as well as their troops' crippling gambling addictions. However, before we get the ball rolling on any of that, we need to go and stop Benny. Which we can easily do thanks to all the evidence we've gathered on the way here by following the story's intended path. As he will have no relevance on the plot today, I just ignore Yes Man entirely. Although, while I'm in the tops, I pay Tommy the Pirate a visit so that I may start and then quickly finish the talent pool quest. Kinda similar to the GI Blues quest, is a short, simple quest with zero combat that offers some very quick XP gains. It also helps that I've already been to all of the locations where the new stars are found, so it really takes no time at all. While on the strip, I went and met with Ambassador Crocker. All his quests will line up with helping House. In fact, his first one is to go and recruit the Boomers, and it's literally House's first quest after we upgrade the Securitrons. Speaking of, I began heading for the fort at this point, and in doing so, wandered into Nelson. Being a small Legion outpost, I thought I may as well wipe it off the map while I was here. Much like the encounter with Volpes and his pack, it doesn't take much to deal with them, and in doing so, I'm able to get the best outcome for Ranger Milo's quest by rescuing the 3 hostages rather than putting them out of their misery like he initially suggested. This also triggers part of Boone's special dialogue now that he is growing to like and trust me. Around here, I noticed I was running low on healing supplies, so I decided to make what was supposed to be a small detour to the New Vegas medical clinic. I may have also purchased a cybernetic upgrade or two. But rather than return to my journey towards the fort, I figured I'm close to Nellis and it was something I would need to tackle at some point, so I opted to get it over and done with now. As we are still on hardcore mode, I just told Boone and Rex to stay put and keep each other company in Field's shack until I returned. I really do not like their chances of surviving the Boomers' bombardment. Alright, as for my time in Nellis, we'll keep this brief. I'm planning to help them all this time. Considering I'm about level 16 at this stage, I have more than passed the skill requirements to just fly through all of their tasks. Medicine lets me heal the sick, repair allows me to fix the panels, science makes it so I can bypass the ants with a sonic emitter, and finally speech means I can help Jack with his love life. Oh, and my personal real life skill of patience gets me through their history lesson with Pete. All that left was raising the bomber, which of course goes smoothly. The only snag being the usual lake lurks who want to tear my brain in half. Returning to Pearl, and now the Boomers are indebted to me and will help out during the final assault. Before leaving, I remember to make my way out to the final hull tip now that the boomers have stopped carpet bombing the area. Thanks to the jury rigging perk, I can also use my metal armor to fix up the set of power armor I grabbed from the remains. I can't wear it right away, but it won't be long before that changes. Most importantly, before heading off to Hidden Valley once more, I make sure to go back and pick up the boys. In the underground hellhole, I quickly run through the stupid virus purging task so that I may take the hull tips to Harden and have him oust McNamara and become the next Elder. Doing things this way allows us to get power armor training much faster than if we were just helping out McNamara. Plus, spoiler, seeing how we are siding with House, I will need to dispose of the Brotherhood at some point, so I gain nothing from running through the long side of their questline today. Well, Harden won't just hand over the training manual and instead requests that we perform one final task, that being take out the Van Graffs by any means necessary. While running in there swinging to my heart's content while Boone pops heads and Rex eats their socks sounds appealing, I figure I don't always have to approach these situations like a battering ram. So I work smarter and not harder by asking for a job and then purposely letting this fine gentleman into the store without so much as a pat down, resulting in him giving a hearty welcome to all inside. I rush in with Simon to finish off any survivors when, to my utter shock and horror, Gloria appears to have ascended to some higher plane as she is just ominously floating a few feet off the ground, seemingly unfazed by the destruction of her livelihood. Simon is also unbothered by this, and figures it is I who is the problem and attempts to kill. Unfortunately for him, I am a lot faster on the draw. Before reporting my success back to Harden, I scrape together all the shiny pieces around the shop that aren't on fire and sell them to the gunrunners. Like I said, I don't really need money, but I do like it. I head back, get patted on the head for following orders, and then get my power armor training as well as a banged up old set of T45D. This made me realise that I probably shouldn't wear the one that I fixed up from Nellis, as it is classified as one of the Brotherhood's faction sets, meaning if I wear that around any NCR, there's a high likelihood they will try to kill me. They will feel, of course, but it's a headache I'd rather not deal with all the same. So I went up to trade it in to the quartermaster. With that, plus my own funds, I was able to not only get a non-faction set, but also get some cheap power armor I could use to spruce up the T45 with, which I then hand off to Boone so that he would survive for more than 5 seconds once we bring the fight to Caesar. Before that purge though, we have one here we have to commit. May as well get this out of the way now that they have outlived their usefulness to both me and House. Continuing with the mindset we approach the Van Graffs with, I make use of my science skill to hack into the first floor turrets so they can wipe out everybody on this level. I even managed to somehow access the terminal while Ramos was on it. Given the angle I was at, that implies it must have looked something like this. The best part about doing things this way is they never clock on that you are the one responsible, so I can casually just stand around and wait until I am certain that all of the paladins are vaporized. The bottom floor isn't even worth your time for me to go over. 2 paladins are the only semi-threat down here, and that is it. Piercing Strike coupled with Oh Baby is frankly absurd levels of overkill for dealing with knights wearing nothing but recon armor. For good measure, I set the base to blow, making use of my 100 in science this time simply because I forgot to grab the keycards and really don't want to have to walk all the way back upstairs to grab Ramos's. So, things are going very well. With the Brotherhood, Boomers, and Omertas all dealt with, all that was really left to do for House was the business at the fort. However, the journey there was not without hardship. On our way southeast, when passing by Wolfhorn Ranch, we were once more approached by another group of Legion assassins. Boone was the first one to notice them, as he often is, but the second Rex got a hint of their scent, he was off like a rocket to protect us. He took multiple gunshots and a plasma grenade like an absolute champ, but alas, in the end it was all too much for our cybernetic putsch, and with one final hail of SMG fire, Rex was no more. I was in disbelief at what had just transpired, but once it had hit me, it was like a switch had been flipped. All I could see was red, and I don't just mean the crimson of the Legion. No more games. They will die, and we will do it for Rex. We approached Cottonwood Cove in the dead of night, and quickly cut a path through them to the raft. Inside the fort it is much of the same. Multiple attempts to impede Boone and I, but very little can slow us down. The power armor truly was a great call, as while yes it is allowing me to tank more effectively when closing the gap for the kill, It's also letting Boone essentially just sit out in the open without a care in the world while he cycles through the many firearms he has collected like he's playing the gun game. When the time comes to assault Caesar and his personal guard in the tent, it all just happens so fast. Everyone is just throwing hands, swinging melee weapons and ballistic fists like it's going out of style. People are being disarmed of their weapons and appendages, and Boone, realizing he is the only one with a ranged weapon, sets up in the corner like it's 2009 and he really wants that tactical nuke. In fact, during all of this ensuing chaos, while I am being repeatedly sucker punched in the back of the skull, Boone manages to be the one who lands the killing blow on both Caesar himself and his second in command Lucius. It's a little hard to see with everything happening so fast, but it's clear from the footage I am not facing either of them once they take their final breath. Things got a tad hairy for Boone near the end as he started taking a few more hits than I would have liked. Thankfully, Vats comes in clutch, along with me using myself as a shield between Boone and them. With their leaders culled, it's not long before the common rabble loses hope, allowing us to finish them off with ease. I speak with Boone so we can hear him sound slightly happy for a change, and then I go and sit on Caesar's throne to really rub salt in the wound. This was also where I noticed that the power armor was not designed to be worn while relaxing. I'm not quite sure what's happening to my shoulder, but that's going to require a doctor's bag for certain. There are of course a small handful of legionaries in the lower section of the camp still to contend with, but considering what we had to go through to get to this point, they are barely even a footnote in our conquest of the fort. With the Legion presence finally scrubbed from the place, we can go on with our actual mission, that of course being to upgrade the Securitrons for House. Protectrons and turrets pose no issue, but even still, I hacked into the nearby terminals to just disable them for efficiency. Once upgraded, it's back to Vegas, but not directly to House. Remember what I said before, now that I've upgraded the robots along with all my other misadventures thus far, I'm about to skip right to the Protecting Kimball quest. And while I am sure my current rep with the NCR will be more than enough, I figured it couldn't hurt to get it a little higher beforehand. In other words, it's back to Crocker to inform him of my visit to Nellis, and that as an ambassador he should really pay more attention to the exact words I am using when explaining the explosive fetishist's loyalty. His next quest, and the one that's wholly unique to the NCR path, is one that involves the Kings. My options are to either get rid of Pacer in a way that does not implicate the NCR, or find a more peaceful solution. Obviously, I already completed GI Blues and never asked for a reward, so I can turn in the King's favour and wrap this up in no time, which I do. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. Now, typically, if a companion dies for me, I would just normally load back. Not the case today, so you can imagine my shock when I discovered some heartbreaking and frankly well-acted dialogue from the King regarding what has happened to Rex.
That's strange. I don't see old Rexy with you. He usually comes back here whenever he's not with you. Where'd he get to? That's terrible. I hope the poor little guy gave as good as he got. He always was a fighter. What? I remember one time when he... Do you mind if we talk about something else?
You know, as depressing as that was, it's still only the second saddest death of a character named Rex that has occurred this month. I report back to Crocker, he congratulates me, and then sends me off to work with Colonel Murr over at Hoover Dam. That we cannot do, as I am fairly certain her first quest is for us to kill Mr. House, which we naturally would like to avoid. We repay their bloodlust with kindness, as while they wish for me to whack my boss, I flip the tables and instead go about saving theirs. Due to being such a good noodle in the NCR's eyes, I am now allowed to openly carry my weapons around the dam without causing suspicion. This allows me to just lie in wait in the sniper tower with my hammer out and immediately get the beat down on the Legion sniper the very second he shows his stupid face. I then use the nearby radio to confirm that yes, the gunshots you all heard were indeed deadly, so they can get Kimball to safety. That doesn't exactly happen though, as he still just keeps rambling on until the world's worst assassin rushes up and stabs the wrong person. He is promptly dealt with, and then Kimball leaves via his chopper. Honestly, at this stage he could have just kept going. What are the odds there are more than two of the assassins? Regardless, House is pleased with our efforts, and it is now time to begin the final stretch. However, I'm still not done. It's a casual run after all, I'm still having fun, I simply want to keep playing, plus there were a few more things I wanted to do. First off, I wanted to visit the cans. No real reason other than I hadn't had much interaction with them this run, and I do like helping them out when I can. On the way to Red Rock though, we ran into more Legion assassins. Not as incompetent as the two they sent after Kimball, but not much better if we're being real. Arriving at the canyon, and I get to work immediately. Now, I don't go about asking them to join up with the NCR, feel like that may end in me having to kill them later if things don't go according to plan. So rather, I aim to just get in their good graces, and hopefully convince them to peacefully leave the Mojave. I start by ousting Carl. Violently. What's one more Legion corpse after all? And then I get set on convincing the other main voices to my way of thinking. Jack and Diane end up being by far the easiest. I was ready to go and free Anders along with the rest of their drug running business, but then I remembered that Motor Runner still needs to be alive for that. With that quest off the table, all I have to do is pass a few simple speech checks and they are okay. Even though it's not required, I help Jerry the Punk as well by letting him join the followers of the Apocalypse. Although I suppose that's more of a boon for them than the cans, unless they considered him dead weight, because if that's the case then thumbs up all around. All that leaves is Melissa, who is up near Quarry Junction. You know, the Deathclaw house. I prepare for this the best way that I know how with a melee build, by buying and looting as much turbo beforehand as I possibly can. We pray that Boone stands back, lest we want another wreck situation on our hands. The young ones are simple enough, they still hit hard, what with the difficulty and all, so I cannot be too reckless around them. Naturally, it's the fully grown ones we need to watch out for. They attacked us all at once, which was not entirely ideal, but somehow we made it work. I say they attacked us, but really they all locked onto me. Boone was just sitting safely over by the cliff's edge, just sniping away, without any of them thinking to rush him. Side note, is Boone programmed to specifically cripple the legs of Deathclaws? I only bring this up because throughout this entire short encounter, that's what he kept doing. Don't get me wrong, I am by no means complaining. It clearly saved my life more than once here. I just find it strange how many of the ones Boone was targeting were limping by the time they made it close to me. During the chaos, I have to just start eating one of everything in my inventory. Due to stimpaks healing over time in hardcore mode, it's the best way to guarantee that I'll get my health back quickly. I also drank something with a low light vision effect, which is why everything has a blue filter over it. The Super Slam perk was being rather fickle here again, which wasn't exactly ideal, but I was able to use the Mauler special attack in VATS to knock away some of the bigger threats. Bonus points if Boone was able to then finish them off while they were incapacitated. With all this combined, as well as a healthy dosing of Med-X and Psycho, the two of us were more than a match for this group of Deathclaws. We then took a small moment to hunt down the others in the area. Not because we're psychopaths, but because I'd rather not risk one of them sneaking up on us and mauling Melissa and her fellow cans. Speaking of, Melissa can be convinced without even having to pass a speech check. You just simply tell her what happens to women under the Legion, and she immediately believes you. No checks and no proof required. I'm guessing this is the devs throwing us a bone, seeing how the player just had to fight through a whole horde of Deathclaws just to talk with her. Honestly, fair. Now, at this point, I should be heading back to the cans, but lo and behold, I got distracted once again. This time by the powder gangers down in Vault 19. What might surprise you even more is that I did not just murder them all. No, rather I worked my way through the vault and cleared it of the geckos and helped them out. Their next request was that I ask Papa Khan if they can join up with him over in Red Rock. Simple enough, but we will get to that. It was off to Sloan for now to help out Melissa with her side quest. It's not needed to make the cans leave, but the rep will certainly make things easier. There's nothing much to it other than some talking here and then again down at Primm. The highlight clearly being when Boone got stuck in the nearby vending machine. He's just quirky like that. Reporting back to Papa one final time, and I'm able to convince him that the cans would thrive better outside of the Mojave, and he agrees. He also likes my idea of having the powder gangers join them, although he does mention that they will need to go through the trials to actually become a can. Probably not what the powder gangers were expecting, but no skin off my teeth. Both of those factions will now skedaddle before the final battle, making my life easier, or rather, making post-game life easier in the slideshow. Working with the cans for that stretch reminded me that I still need to do Boone's companion quest that takes place in Bitter Springs. There's a hidden mechanic of a certain amount of loyalty or friendship points you need to build up first by doing certain things with Boone. Most of them involve murdering Legion troops, so we are pretty close to him giving us the quest. In fact, we were closer than I thought, as he brings it up the second we get to Bitter Springs. It's funny because he mentions being back at Bitter Springs and how he doesn't want to talk about what happened. But because I then got enough loyalty points, he does tell me what happened. Then when I suggest going, he says no. But then when I talk to him again, he says he's had a lot of time to think about it and that we should go. Good job, Boone, you worked through that pretty quick. Before we tackle his emotions, I chose to help out the NCR here. I won't waste your time going into too much detail, it just involved me buying some medical books for the doctor, asking for aid from a few NCR settlements I'd already been to, all of which gave me the aid no questions asked by this point as my rep was max, and then finally taking out a rogue can above the camp who was sniping people at night. Pretty sure that last one can be handled peacefully, but maybe because I was with Boone and he recognised him or something, he just opened fire right away before I even had a chance to talk. It's not a huge loss either way, didn't even lose any rep with the cans. With the last of the NCR's problems here solved, I turned to Boone to then help him with his emotional baggage. We go to a nearby ridge, the same one where he hit his war crime no-scopes a few years ago, and I agree to wait with him here for the night. Before long, we are then once again jumped by a band of Legion soldiers. At the very least, this time it's a raiding party and not like the 8th group of assassins exclaiming, "This time for sure!" Now, an odd thing with this is that I could have sworn from when I've done this in the past that the raiders are meant to approach from down the hill, then that way you and Boone can sit here and essentially snipe them and pick them off. I always thought it was like a coming full circle moment for Boone, as this is a place where he hates himself for the horrible things he's done, but now he can make a better memory as he stands on the same spot and defends Bitter Springs. Except, this time, a majority of the Legion just spawned in behind us, and were already attacking the camp. We can get there before they kill all of the unnamed civilians, but I won't lie, we were cutting it a tad close. It wasn't until we had cleared out this small force inside the base that a few more groups began spawning down the ridge where I would have expected them to. Boone kind of disappeared during all of this, probably off sniping other legionnaires I couldn't see. But once I mopped up the last of my ones, he did find me again, and we were able to somewhat soothe his guilty conscience. Doing so gets him a spiffy new outfit that we sadly cannot see, due to his power armor being all around better. Not to worry, as I have a better alternative anyway, and this is something I like to do for him once finishing his questline. As I am idolised with the NCR, I can enter their safe house and grab a set of the NCR Ranger combat armor for Boone. It just looks right on him, you know? And with that, I've pretty much tackled everything I wanted and normally would do in a normal casual run of mine. So let's say we go power up the El Dorado substation and end this little adventure. Little, he says. I level up right as I reach the dam, so here is a good look at my final stats. Like I said, high focus on melee and then just science, repair, and medicine. The 93 in speech was overkill. Think I can count the number of times I made use of that skill on one hand. On to the fighting, and while yes, the initial Legion are hitting rather hard, it is not enough to stop me. I stocked up on healing supplies, I'm not a fool. It was more so Boone who I was worried about, again. Sure, he has proven strong enough in the past, but there are a lot of ranged fighters here. Not something that's happened a lot with us primarily fighting the Legion for 90% of this run. Weird how it's only now that they decide to get strapped, but whatever. Not that it mattered, as Boone may have just activated a cheat code or something. Sure, I do heal him a little here, but I have no idea how he managed to come out alive after all of these Legion troops are just wailing on him. Oh, and for those of you at home who are trying to keep track of Boone's arsenal, he grabbed a marksman carbine off of somebody at some point and started putting it to work throughout this section of the dam. Inside the dam, and as you can imagine, I excel in the close quarters environment. I did finally find a use for my speech skill though, and that was convincing these two heavies to abandon their post. I worked hard to get that NCR rep to max, don't exactly want to throw it all away here right at the finish line. Plus I'm not entirely sure how Boone would react to that. Back topside, the Legion are throwing everything they've got at us, most notably the Centurions, who are now all packing anti-material rifles. They aren't too much stronger than those we've faced up to this point, plus now we have multiple Securitrons raining down artillery with their new missile upgrades. Once we clear out the initial wave, I decide to grab whatever ammo I could find for the anti-material rifle, and then hand it over to Boone. He is a sniper by trade, and this is by far the best one that he can get. It also transforms him into the one and only John Vegas from the game's opening. Now there's a dumb video just waiting to happen. With Boone in his final form and the single souped up Securitron by our side, we sweep aside the small handful of Praetorians before facing the Legate. I don't even bother to talk with him and instead just go in rapidly attacking so I can get right next to him and land the first blow rather than him sucking us into his dialogue. The Legate is very difficult to knock down, so I wasn't relying on that this time. Really, I just needed to stand between him and Boone while keeping the rest of the Legate's men off of him so he could line up his shots. Boone's accuracy took quite the hit once he began using the anti-material rifle, but to be fair, it wasn't a problem. Sure, he was hitting less, but when he did connect, it did disgusting damage. For example, during the scuffle, he's able to crack the Legate with a shot right to his torso. This manages to push Lanius below half, resulting in him trying to escape from the fray. I momentarily leave Boone in the Securitron to deal with the Praetorians, while I jump down to cut him off. This works, and I can land a few good clean strikes that put the Legate down for good. All that left was clearing out the rest of the Legion in the area. I was ready to go up and deal with the 2 guards personally, but fortunately when I got there, I found the Securitron was tweaking the hell out and just eviscerating them both. Works for me, I suppose, but just as we are ready to confront Oliver, a few more spawn in and rush for Boone. Terrified I won't make it in time, I pop my last turbo, which in retrospect I could have used against the Legate, and then I quickly close the gap, and thanks to my super speed as well as super slam, I can save Boone and take out the final few threats in style. All that leaves is General Oliver, and not to be too anticlimactic, but I just talk him down. It's what House would prefer along with Boone, I imagine. Although, according to Mr. House, there is a rather high probability that our actions here today will indirectly lead to his death anyway, so huzzah! So with that, the slideshow rolls, finishing the game and proving yes, you can indeed beat New Vegas. As me. After doing this for almost 5 years and 100 Fallout runs to boot, I'm honestly shocked it's still fun to play casually. Frankly, I can't even remember the last time I did. Maybe in like 2021? Not sure though. This certainly went on much longer than I would have thought. Initially I figured it would be like a 20-minute video, but clearly I went a bit overboard. Well, the next video should be a smaller one, at the very least, so it shouldn't be too long of a wait between this and that, but you never know. Sometimes I just like to babble on. Finally, I just wanted to thank you guys for sticking around for 100 Fallout runs and over 150 total runs on the channel. It's crazy to think I've been doing this for 5 years come the end of June, and spoiler alert, I have no plans to stop anytime soon. Why would I? It's just too much fun, and y'all provide an endless amount of ideas on top of that. I'd be crazy to stop. Regardless, that's going to be the end of the challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like. If you're interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe. I'm trying to run these videos out fairly frequently. My name is Nerbit, stay safe everyone, I'll see y'all in the next video.